Welcome to Sapiens Talks. And again, we are here with a wonderful topic that is the importance of conversation in life and relationships. You know, the power of words. Words are very powerful. If you speak positively, then they can have a positive impact on people. And if you have some words which are negative, so they are certain to leave negative impact on people you are talking to. So they can break or make the relationships. So they are very powerful. As we say that words can become curse, words can become prayers, words can become praise, and words can become abuse as well.
Yes.
So words are very powerful, and this is something we are going to talk about. And the topic we have chosen is as old as the humanity itself. When people started exploring things, people started talking. So how they talked, because they had this skill. I mean, they started communicating with each other, and how they communicated with the help of words. So words are really very powerful. So this is something we are going to talk about. So first of all, we'll be talking about the basis of conversation. You can say that is the fundamental, and that is the foundation of conversation. And this is really going to have people. This is going to affect people in many ways. It can help people have good relationships. It can help people have good business connections, and this can also help people maintain some degree of this can help people build trust, and this can also help people respect each
Mm.
other, right? So this is something we are going to talk about. So first of all, what we are going to discuss is the importance, and importance is I mean, we are talking about the foundation, right? We are talking about the basis of conversation. So, Robin, just tell me, what is the basis, what is the foundation of conversation, which can really be very helpful for people to lead a very happy and very peaceful life. So, how can people navigate through the conversations to have very nice conversations?
Okay. Good evening, first of all, and this is me, Robin, and says hi to everyone. Conversation, and conversation. In one word or in one sentence, if I can say, conversation is supposed to be a panacea for all sorts of problems of a nature called spousal conflicts, business conflicts, or maybe any sort of discords arising in some relationship. So if you have a good command over your particular way of conducting yourself through your verbal interaction with the people, there is a probability that you can not just protect your relationship, but you can also strengthen it further, even if even when it has undergone a kind of a change which is not of positive nature, right? So this much of value this conversation holds, and we must acknowledge it because the world acknowledges it, right? Since you asked me this question, which is very pertinent for these discussions, what are those fundamentals or underpinnings, right, on which we could really hold a good conversation with the people, and in how many ways these conversation could be really, really, good for overall, in a sense that it could really strengthen relationship. It can really, put a new life in almost a stringent relationship, as what happens recently, that this digital world has led people to live their lives so separately that they are unwilling to discuss things, I mean, with other people whom very close to them, right? And this certain distance leads them to face a complete alienation, right? And that what and we require then to tackle this situation is only the conversation. So conversation is undoubtedly the most important tool, or one of the most important ancillary tool, which perhaps, I don't know the exact data, but if you check the legal history of this country or across the globe, that how many cases have been solved out just through mediation. So
Yeah.
even when any spousal conflicts comes into limelight and it reaches to the threshold of a court, then the court first advises to the parties in conflict that why don't you go to mediation, so that some mediator be sitting there and will be helping to access some sort of possibility, the possible perspective. With the help of it, you could really solve out your issues. And this is what happens most of the times. In fact, 70% of the total cases are may not be exact on the data, but are solved solely by mediation, right? So this power, is what we can say is being held by the conversation. Only you require that you should be good at it, and you should be knowing all those fundamental, the basics, so that you could really apply it at the right point of time to really handle those issues which seems to be going out of your hands, right? And many best conversationalists, even communicators, apply this rule, apply this particular tool, and they try to make things controllable, and they often go succeed in their missions, right? So this is what is the significance of conversation in today's world, having seen this changing world at the same time, right? And the requirement of the societies are also changing, right? Now, when we talk about all those changes and basics and fundamentals, then first we need to understand these things, that a conversation is a conversation when there is an emotional connect.
Yeah.
Without emotional connect, there cannot be a conversation, because
It means,
on the
we are just exchanging words. We are just exchanging
yes.
information. There is no connection. There is no connection. So we have to build the connections first, and then we can let the conversation flourish.
Absolutely. I mean, otherwise, there'll be no difference between holding a diplomatic conversation that happens at the international forum, where leaders from one country attend a meeting with the leaders of other countries, and all they do is just a diplomacy. So there is a great play of diplomacies where people are appearing to be very much sympathetic, but in reality, they are self centered. So they are
Yeah.
almost talking about the interest for their own nation. So this is not a diplomacy. Therefore, we need to be able to differentiate this, make a distinction between a talk that involves in diplomacy and the talk which really involves in building up a good relationship. So here we are talking on how to build up good relationship, strengthen our relationship, which is almost on the verge of its complete breaking, right? A break. So on these things, we need to talk about it. So emotional connect, as I told you, could be the one of the most important fundamental to build up a conversation with the people, right? So as I told you, quality is always preferred over quantity. So even when you are communicating with people, with your friends, so much more than you talk to anyone, but as long as you are talking to them superficially and you are not connected emotionally to that person, there has not to be there's not at all a benefit on either side, because both of the people, both of the person are there to just to extract and induce their personal benefits, right? So such conversations, according to me, are not conversations, and it may be conversation, but I would rather call them a professional conversation, and that is done for achieving and attaining some specific objects, right? But when we talk about how to protect our relationship, because relationship is something very important to be preserved, this particular relationship, because relationship is the sole base on which the society, you can say, is bedrocked, right? When you don't have a good relationship with your family members, when you don't have good relationship with your colleagues whom you spend a lot of time, you cannot expect a formation of a good society. A strong foundation decides what kind of society you are going to erect, and this is what is purely dealt by only a good relationship, a healthy relationship in a family, healthy relationship in different working places, right, where people from different cultures come together and they pursue an objective for one company. So when you don't have a good strong relationship with the people, I think nothing could be there to flourish, right? And in this on this particular part, we need to understand how a conversation could play a very key role in handling all those situations, right? So I'm not just limiting my this very point to emotional connect as the fundamental. There are several other important fundamentals and basics which equally support and strengthen conversations. and conversations thereafter gives us a return in building up a good relationship, right? Apart from this, one more things could also be added as a basic of the conversation. Second is that uh, you always promote uh, a relationship, promote understanding, right? And understanding can be promoted only when you have a space for other, isn't it? So when you don't have any space for other, you are not willing to listen to people, then how
Yeah.
you can expect to be having a good relationship with the people, right? In fact, in most of the cases, it is seen that those relationships which are reaching to the court in order to have a final solution are those cases where these people are almost making a great distance, both in terms of your physical distance as well as verbal distance, right? So means they are not in proper connect. They don't even try to touch each other. They don't do any verbal contact. And that what happens when you don't do verbal contact with people whom so ever close to you, you actually further the distance in all possible ways. So you are living mm, apart from your partner, but when you stop talking to that partner, you actually multifold that distance, and thereafter situations becomes more worse, and almost it finds and tries to find out a solution, and ultimately they get only one solution available to them is to go to the court and let the court decide the cases in the favor of the parties, right? So this is what we have to understand. Second important thing, third important thing, I think your your critical understanding, right, is always, according to me, often promoted by your good conversation skills. So you can also include this as another part of a basic to conversation, because when you do a deep dive in a conversation with people, which means you are also in a mood to find out possible perspectives. When you don't have a conversation, how you can expect that we could have a number of other perspective possibles? So possibilities are there for you only when you talk about possibilities, right? So therefore conversation plays a very significant role in that, and therefore I always say that why people who are willing to make a big change in the society, why they are so much not talkative, but why they are so much into deep philosophical understanding about the society, about the world, about the lives of the people, and why they are always so willing to talk to people on the same issues. I mean, can't we see this right now? As we go to this digital world right now, we see there are n number of platforms. And on this n number of platforms, there are n number of people coming from different segments, different departments, carrying their different portfolios, and they are talking on different subjects. They are making themselves busy in conversations. Why? Because they are trying to find out different kind of perspectives possible, so that they could really utilize it, and they could really make something out of it, deduce something out of it, so that it could be best applicable to the need of the society, right? So therefore conversation is, according to me, is very important, and one must not forget uh you know how to apply the basics and include those basics. Otherwise it completely becomes a diplomatic talks, and I really don't support diplomatic talks in managing family affairs. It could be good to maintain the harmony of your nation. It could be really important to really bring those important benefits to personal to person to private to one on nation. It is very important, but it could not be good for managing uh, you can say personal affairs. So this is what I have to say on this very part, and I think if you start conversation with people, keeping these three or four important points in your mind, which are the basics to conversation. That first, connect emotionally to a person, which will give a feeling to your party that you are so close to them, so the other party will not be hesitant anymore and will be opening up himself or herself, which is very important, because unless people are open up, then you can't expect them to be coming out with the real undercurrents, right? because it is not possible. People are very much expert and skilled in playing a pretentious role, right? So we need to give them that space where they could really play that they who they are in reality. So they, with the help of this, we could really develop a strong relationship. And somewhere, conversation plays a very key role on it, right? With this particular basic, if we apply it properly. Over to you.
And because my job is to meet new people, so what I see nowadays is that as you know that people are both the partners are doing job, and the kids are alone at home, so they don't have anyone to talk to, they don't have anyone to share themselves with, and this can leave a void in their lives, and this can after a long period of time
Yeah.
explode into something dangerous, something very negative. As for example, as I get to know people, and they always talk about, when you talk to these people, you can easily get to know what they are going through.
Yeah.
If you talk to them very nicely, they sometimes they start shedding tears, and this shows that they don't have anybody who can talk to them so lovingly, right?
Yeah.
And so this is really very much important for people, to not let people feel that they're being ignored, and because you may have work to do, but you don't have to compromise this
Right.
with this particular thing. The question I want you to answer is, tell me what makes a conversation meaningful and transformative, because with this conversation can be very transformative. This can transform the whole being of the person, right? And this
Right.
can also help person to have some meaning in their lives. So,
Right.
how can conversations be meaningful and transformative?
Okay, I mean, it is an experience that I got through one of uh, the most famous Supreme Court lawyers, and he is also known as the father of mediation, right? So I forgot the name of this Supreme Court lawyer, but I am especially reminded of one of his parts that he spoke in one of the shows. He says that many people, you know, uh, decide their fate. Uh, I mean, by not having a proper conversation with the people, and they take some drastic steps with which they should not, have taken. And sometimes people, reach to this conclusion that even ending personal life is the solution of the problem. Recently, there is a case, Atul Suhas, who has committed suicide for some family's spousal conflict.
Yeah.
And and what he said in the video that he actually put forth, that he said that I really don't seek any help from judiciary. Moreover, there is no certain help which could really give me this expectations, or which could meet with my expectations, and therefore I've decided to take my life, because taking my life could be a bestest solution for the problem which I'm facing right now, right now. Many people take such actions, and they do take these actions without going through a proper channel, right? They don't even think about having a conversation with people, because in the mind of such people there is only a thing which is called a button of delete. So they only know that if something is against them and they are not able to cope up with the situation, it's better to press the key delete, so that everything could be deleted. So when you eliminate your existence, the problem will also be eliminated itself. But actually, when you have a conversation with the people, it is said that you are almost opening up new possibilities. As I told you, that until you have a until you put yourself to a degree of exposure, you can't expect to be having much perspectives or more perspectives. So perspective is something directly proportional to your exposure. How much expose you do to yourself in different situations while holding a communication with people, you are actually trying opening up gate for you to have more ideas, more possibilities. Therefore, conversation cannot be undermined in any way. And this is what happened in this case, and this is just one example. There are so many examples which actually tell us the same thing, where people are not willing to have a conversation with the people, because they think there is no scope left in handling a certain situations which they are in, right? So this is the one part of the this is one part of the discussion. Other possible parts is that when you go along with this with this journey, because we are living in certain complex societal system, where some people are, you can say, pretty kind of selfish, and we really don't believe in those people. That's what I know, right? Just because we really don't have a trust on them. But the next question arises, how you could have a trust on them until you exchange things with the people, until you give people an opportunity to come and to know you. You can't expect this from people. So therefore, people always, some good conversationalist always suggest that you need to stop playing pretentious role. You need to come out with certain reality. Many people, just fear for rejection, right? They
Yeah.
have there is a sense of rejection as a fear in their mind, so therefore they put themselves far away, or keep themselves at bay, because they know if they do something, if they talk something, if they carry out a certain conversation, so they might be rejected. And this rejection is a kind of problem for many of the people, that it keeps them away from being a little bit open where they should not, where they should be. But unfortunately they can't be, just because of they have fear of rejection, right? So there are things which are there before us, but I always say that we have to be very much kind of attentive, and we have to tackle things accordingly. Over to you.
Yes, and the next thing we want to discuss is tell me how can we balance this speaking and listening to create more and more harmony between the people we are talking to? How can it be possible? How can we make the conversation more harmonious?
I mean, first thing which I personally observe these days, that people speak more than they listen.
Yeah,
And in fact, what I find is the biggest roadblock, okay, for people, and because they fail to establish a strong relationship with people, right? And it is quite
just
obvious.
try to be dominant.
Yes, they obviously it's a kind of thing where you are almost on a path where you think everything must be according to you,
Yeah,
and there is no regard for others' concern. So
yeah,
when you show such a conversation, or when you show such an attitude to people, and then you expect that you to have a good strong relationship with the people, it is impossible.
yeah,
People find those, I mean, such category of people who speak more and then listen are selfish. And it's very obvious why they should not think about it, right? Even today, you or me or any sensible person would love to share their secrets with only those people who are there to listen to them
yeah,
with a degree of concern. It is not just a superficial talk which they only hear and let it go. I mean, obviously, we don't want to, share, and we don't want to entrust things to people which are highly secrets to us, right? And therefore, it requires a certain amount of trust, transparency in the relationship. Until you have this trust, transparency in the relationship, I think your conversation or your particular kind of need that harmony is to be maintained in the relationship, it is not possible today. It is impossible, because you have to give due regard to other person's concern. Until you do that, no one is willing to give you that much of a space which is actually needed right now. I mean, right now we are doing businesses and doing jobs in different locations and living apart from our families, right? And sometimes this distance leads to face us the same situations. Same situation means that we are somewhere losing that trust, we are losing that transparency, right? So this long gap in verbal connection, leads us to face such kind of issues more often. Even in matrimonial relationship, it is seen moreover that mostly that those couples living apart for any of the reason are mostly seen ending up with this estrangement, right? Because they lose their trust on each other. So therefore it is sometimes very difficult, a complicated situation where they could even maintain the relationship with all harmony, right?
Yeah.
So we have to maintain this balance by continue to put ourselves, not thrust ourselves on people, and we need to give people a sense that yes, we are there for them, and there is a concern which is yours, but even I do have a care for that, and we all together would work on that so that you could be out of this situation, right? And this is only possible, as I told you, by building up trust through emotional connect, okay, and through open ended questions. Open ended questions, I think, are missing these days.
Yeah.
People want to listen to responses only in yes or no in binary languages, which is not good for healthy relationship. If I ask you something, then my question should not be that much exacting or demanding, that you should be responsive only in binary languages, yes or no. Until I give you space or room to be more elaborative on, then it is impossible to establish a healthy relationship with the people, let alone thinking about maintaining harmony in the relationship. Out of this busyness in the world, we are dealing with different problems at a personal level. Some people are having problems pertaining to financial issues, some people are having issues related to other relationship issues, some people have their other properties issues, there are number of issues, and there are endless issues. But until unless you make people feel that you have sufficient time for them, and you give them a proper listening with concern, right? Because listening without concern means to listen to someone with a superficial mindset. This superficial mindset is no less than a diplomatic talks, right? So we need to be very careful on every point. That's what I always suggest to people. So some relationships are so closed, and these closeness are only protected and could only be protected only when you show openness to people, right? So if you do anything wrong, okay, then you should not be hiding that thing from your close partner, because when you sometime come up with some reality, okay, then it builds up trust more on your partner, right? It suggests, it tells the person that yes, you are also very much kind of truth, and your truthness somewhere gives them a strong reason that why he or should not trust on you, right? So these are the things which are which are very important and are subject to proper contemplations according to the situations and according to the changing circumstances. Over to you.
And what I've seen is that when a person is neglected and ignored, especially when they are having conversation and they're not being shown the regard they should be, shown. So this is where the conflict happens, and the relations become inharmonious, right?
Right.
So you have to give the space to the person you're talking to or you're being with. If you're always trying to be dominant, if you're always trying to be heard by the other person
Hmm.
and never
Right.
giving any chance and to listen to them, then you
Right.
are somewhere missing the point, which is really very important. This happens generally because now you see it. I was also the same kind of person when I was a kid, and then while I was growing up, I would always have my own way. I mean, I would not listen to anybody, and I found that people did not take any interest in me. I mean, nobody was ready to listen to me. Nobody was ready to be my friends because
mm,
I never allowed anybody to have their own way. So when with the passage of time, I realized that if I want people to know me better, I think I should be giving them more and more chance to know me. Otherwise, if I'm just talking about myself, I'm talking about the things which I'm doing or what's happening in my life, I think the other person will have no chance to
mm,
speak and open up, right?
mm,
And this will lead to me to this kind. I mean, they will be alienated actually. I
mm,
mean, we will no longer be friends, and I will no longer have people in my life.
mm,
So when I started, I came across a book written by Dale Carnegie, and this is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it is shown in that particular book that if you are speaking, when you speak to somebody, you have to speak almost 40%.
mm,
60% talking has to be done by the person you're speaking to,
mm,
so that you can understand the person well. I mean, if you keep speaking and don't listen to other people, then how would you process the information? How would you process what the person is saying? How would you then understand what he's trying to say or she's trying to say? And then you'll end up misunderstanding the person, and you can never know the perspective from which they're speaking, and this will lead to this disharmony in relationships, right? So if we really want to have good relationships, if we really want to have some healthy relationships, then we should always be allowing the other person to open up, and we should be very patient while we are listening to them. And one more thing, that we should be committed. I mean, when you fail to commit yourself to those people, I think this is where you lose the trust, I mean, of those people, and the trust breaches actually. You just breach the whole trust of the person, right? The next thing we are going to talk about
this
is,
is and one more thing I want to add to it, there is a rule called 50-50 rule.
yeah,
And what it means is that, and this is really good for people who really want to develop a listening skill. Some people really don't have this listening skills, so they really love to speak more than to listen people, because they don't give a due respect to others concerns, right? So this 50-50 rule could be really, productive for them at the initial level. So what they
yeah,
need to do is that, I mean, what time they take for on their speaking part, the same time needs to be given when their turn comes to listen, right? So for example, if I have taken 5 minutes for completing my part, then I need to give other party equal amount of time, which is 5 minutes for listening. So
yeah.
in this way, you could maintain a good, you can say, you can maintain a kind of conversation, in this way. So this is really helpful, ancillary tool, which is often suggested.
Yeah, otherwise the other person will think that I'm being ignored, and
Yes, yes.
I'm not being given the space, I'm not being given the freedom to
Right,
speak,
right,
right?
right, right.
And the next thing we are going to talk about is, tell me in what way conversations mend the broken relationships. Because nowadays we see that the relationships end, and or they can say they become very hard to carry on, because somewhere, either the trust is breached, or the other person is not committed, or the other person is being dominant, or they are not giving the proper or sufficient space to the other person. And one more thing which I've seen nowadays is that if we praise somebody, we
Hmm,
don't lose anything actually. If we can, when somebody does something good, or when they have come up with something new, I think we should be praising the person for this particular thing, and they'll be feeling very, I mean, very special. And if we make the other person feel special, I think this can help us to strengthen the bond with the person, and this can also allow the relationship to flourish, and then this can also help us build the trust. Because I've seen, this is especially, this is taught in the business relation, you can
hmm,
say communication and relationships, that whenever you find something good, then you have to praise the people. But we're not talking about business. We're not talking about the other field. We are talking about the life and the relationships. So
Right.
here we should always be ready to say something good to people. I think this can bring some smile on the face. This can also let them have some moment of happiness, and they'll be feeling special, and they will be thinking there is somebody who really cares for us, who is really there for us, and this will uh, lessen their insecurity, because when they think that there is nobody who helps us, there is nobody who actually makes us feel special, then they
Right.
think that they have nobody actually. They are the feeling of insecurity creeps in. So,
Right.
so this is what we are going to discuss, that what how the conversations mend the broken relationships.
Okay, I mean, before we go ahead and talk about the possible solutions available to us with the help of conversation, through which really we could, mend the broken relationship, can we have a little? Yep.
Let me turn. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that before we go ahead with this, searching for possible solutions available to us with the help of conversation, how we can really mend almost a broken relationship, we need to have a bit conversation on the possible grounds on which these relationship face this kind of conflicts where they reach to the point of complete breakings, right? So I mean, according to me, there could be many possible reasons, but I want to bring your notice only to three or four important points. First, when there is lack of understanding, first, I think it's pretty acceptable. The second is lack of having you know having a possibility, or you can say lack of willingness for compromise, right? And sometimes people are full of tensions, sometimes people are so much stressed, and when people don't really find a particular vent to diffuse that tension, sometimes relationship also go worse
Yeah.
due to this possible reasons, right? So we have these three possible grounds on which we often see and experience that a relationship uh, go worst, right? Now we need to tackle these things individually and understand how the conversation can really be helpful as an instrument which could really make things better, right? So when you talk about lack of understanding, right, as a factor, as a reason of breaking any relationship. Now, when you have a conversation with people with whom you have a certain kind of conflict, then you are actually giving a light to that relationship. You are opening up scope of perspectives on which you could really find a certain solution. Where there is no conversation at all, there is no possibility of revamping any sort of relationship. It is
Right.
impossible, right? So conversation plays a very significant role in that. So therefore we always suggest people that they should always try to seek counseling from someone whom they trust. So therefore, in fact, this is not what I say, but you check the entire data of the society, that you will find what is surprising thing here is that people living in a joint family are often very comfortable in living with their partners more than people living in nuclear family. Why it is so? It is just because of they have their ancestral help in some or other ways. So when any conflict arises in a joint family, there are a number of people which who are highly mature and always very responsible. They help the conflicted partners in their ways possible out to deal with the situation, and they often help them mend their ways. So this is all kind of power of conversation. So there is a conversation on the part of your ancestor which is now connecting two conflicted partners, and with the suggestion of that particular ancestor or some aged person, the entire situation is on the path of complete resolution, right? So this is how the thing works in joint family, and this is only possible with the help of a good conversation, a healthy deep dive conversation, right? So that's how the lack of understanding, how it leads to breaking of relationship, and then you have a good conversation with the same person, and how the things are going to be almost having the same life again as it was having before, right? The other point, the other possible reason, as I talked about, a lot of tension and stress always leads a person, a partner, to make things even worse for them. So because out of stress, out of tension and concern, overwhelming concern, we as a human almost succumb, right? Both at the mental level and the physical level. And the entire impact of this is always reflected on the health of our relationship. These days, these business and companies, cumbersome responsibilities on the partners, I think, are somewhere very much overwhelming, and many people really find it really hard to deal with that. So ultimately their frustration, comes out as a hammer on the spouse, and that's what happens in most of the matrimonial families. So when you have a conversation with a partner whom you are in conflict with, then there is a possibility again to find a possible ways, because you have a concern, you have a stress within you, until you release it through conversation, by telling your partner what is the possible, why I am sad, why I am feeling stressed, what are those things which are happening to me, what is and how things are going against me. When you share all this stuff with your partner, there is a possibility that yes, your partner will understand you, and everything could be reshaped again. Okay, so this is how the conversation is playing the same role as it was playing in the previous part, right? The other thing which I talked about, which is the third possible reason for breaking up this relationship and arising conflicts in the relationship, is that your lack of you can say willingness for compromising, right? Many people really don't love to compromise, because many people have some fragile ego, right? And
Yeah.
they are governed by it, right? So therefore they really don't find themselves in a very strong or suitable position where they could come out with these compromises. And these things gets worse when they don't hold a conversation with other person whom they are in conflict with, right? So when you have a conversation with a person, there is a scope that you might also think about a possible compromise, right? For example, many time you see many family matters are resolved just by a proper conversation, as someone sitting there as a mediator, and this mediator helping both the conflicted party to reach to or to access to a particular solution. It is becoming possible or getting possible only through a conversation. Where there is no conversation held, there is no scope left for any sort of you can say new life in the relationship. So one thing which is almost on the verge of complete elimination, then you really don't give much support to it, and ultimately it goes completely eliminated. So we need to be very careful about it, and how the conversation really makes a difference in making your in maintaining your relationship, in mending your breaking relationship. That's all you have to decide. Over to you.
One nice thing you just said that when a person, suppose a person is having some difficult times at workplace and they just come back home and then they just, you can say they give vent to the frustration while talking to their partner, right? So this should not be the way. Actually, you cannot change the situation, that's there at the workplace, but you can do change the situation at home. Instead of yelling at your partner, I think you can have some good conversation with him or her, or you can share your problems, and this can lessen the kind of tension you are actually going through. This is very possible. And generally what happens, people, instead of sharing themselves with the partners, they start yelling at them, they start abusing them, they start sometimes and they start beating them, with them as well. And this creates this makes the mess of the whole relationship, right?
Right.
And one more thing you talked about is there has to be certain level of understanding. And as we all know that we are different, different with the level is different. We are not all same. So we have to learn to compromise as well at times. So we should not always be thinking that I will not be compromising. If this is somebody else who has to compromise. This is the wrong way actually. When you think that this is going to solve the problem, this is going to help you mend your relationships, I think we can go with that. So there is no harm if you go for compromise. There is no harm if you start working on your the level of your understanding. This can also be done. When you spend a good degree of time with the or good amount of time with the person you are living, I think you can develop the understanding if you're
With
willing to. But if
yeah,
you are
with the
not
help
at
of
all
emotional
willing,
connection. Yeah,
if you're not at all willing, then only God can save you then. So
right,
no,
right,
nobody can help you then.
right.
So we have to learn to compromise at times. We have to learn to understand the other person, and this is where we can develop our understanding with the person. And the other thing is that we should always be trying to mend the relationship instead of letting it go worse. So this is all in our hands, right?
Right.
The next question we have to discuss is tell me, why do people fear vulnerability in conversations, and how can they overcome it?
Okay, I mean, there are many forms of vulnerabilities, but I would love to have a discussion on few of those. First, which I find it very prevalent among many people, is that fear of rejection. I mean, fear of rejection is as such is it such vulnerability which really holds a person to open up himself or herself, which is really the prerequisite requirement for establishing a good or a strong relationship, isn't it? For example,
Yeah.
if I really want to have a strong relationship with a person, and at the same time I want his concerns to be attached to my concern, but at the same time I'm not willing to open up myself. Why? For this very fear of rejection. Why? Because if I say something and then I'm rejected on the same part, it will be a kind of incompetency from my side. And this will somewhere, according to me, devalue my existence in all possible ways in the eyes of other. So fear of rejection is something very common, vulnerability, which really makes people little reluctant in holding a strong conversation or deep dive conversation with people, right? And this is very much common among students, among those who have a certain degree of social phobia, because they often you know conduct themselves as they are they are almost good at things, and therefore they really don't want to face any sort of criticism because they are in a state of fear. If they face criticism or they face certain rejections, their entire reputation will be completely vanished, right? So therefore this vulnerability in the form of this fear of rejection is very kind of prevalent, and I think people have people have the certain ways out to deal with this, which we will talk in the later part of the discussion, right? Now the second, according to me, vulnerability is that some people have their past time rejections, right?
Yeah.
And on the basis of it they evaluate their entire perspectives, and they treat themselves in the same way, and therefore they don't really even build up that self you know encouragement, and with the help of it they could really carry forward themselves in the positive manner, just because of they think they have failed and they have been judged and they have been rejected already in the past time for the same thing. Then it's unworthy of doing the same thing again because they have anticipated a negative result on it already, right? So this past rejection is also one of those, you can say forms which is causing them certain kind of vulnerabilities where they really find it so difficult to hold a strong relationship with the people because they have already anticipated the results, right? Now the third thing, I think, I mean, this is the vulnerability, and one was, as I talked about, what your fear of rejection, right? And there are many other ways, right? And vulnerabilities where people find it really hard to tackle, to with people, and they really feel shy whether they should go ahead, holding with to hold a conversation with the people or not. But one thing I want to say as a result, as a remedy of all this, because what happens that when you start reframing your vulnerabilities as a certain kind of opportunities for you, you actually, opening up a gate of possibilities, which is a big number. Why I say this? For example, you can have this experience personally. Sorry. So what is this? That when you go out and you have a fear of rejection because you think certain things is will cause you rejection. But when you reframe this vulnerability in a way where you deliberately throw yourself in this challenging situation, not just assuming yourself to be having any rejection soon, but to having a possible result, a possible, you can say fixes for them, then you in how many ways you will be, developing yourself on the level of your personality, on the level of mental being, on the level of your emotional being. This is just like you are unwilling to share your personal issues with the people just because of you have a fear of rejection. But what about those possibilities if you share your secrets, your vulnerabilities with the people, and then you have possible, kind of solutions available from different people, right? It is just like a new employee who has just joined a company, out of some fear of rejection, is unwilling to discuss some important problem with the manager just because of he thinks if managers gets this problem will definitely reject him. Then in this case he's actually somewhere closing the doors of opportunities where he could really, revamp himself, where he could really, put himself on a greater possibilities where he could, you know uh, touch to other, promotions in the same industries, in the same kind of corporate sectors, right? So these are the things which people need to be, careful about when they are facing with vulnerabilities. And as I've talked about, these are the possible vulnerabilities according to me. One is your fear of rejection, and the second is your pastime rejections. Over to you.
And one more thing, that if a person is feeling that this is not going to be possible for them to mend the relationships, they should, instead of giving up, they should always be making themselves remind of one particular thing, that change can happen just in a moment. It just
Yeah.
takes only a moment uh, to bring that particular change. For example, a bowler actually in cricket, he just needs one particular ball to get that big wicket, and he bowls so many times, but he needs that one particular ball which can get him a wicket. In the similar fashion, if you keep trying, I think there will be a time when you will find that everything is now going to be okay, because nothing lasts forever, as we already know. And if you have given up, then you have no chance to make it better. Then
Hmm.
there is no chance, because you've
Right.
just stopped trying. The thing we are going to talk about is really very important, and this is, tell me, can the absence of conversation lead to the breakdown of relationships? Why?
Can you please repeat it? I missed something on your part.
Can the absence of conversation lead to the breakdown of relationships? Why and why not?
It's very obvious when you stop communicating with a person whom you maintain a good relationship. You are actually inferring a situation where the other party would probably in a thought process that you have lost your connection. It is not just losing a connection, but it also shows that you have become so much oblivious to the problem of others. This small conversation, even for 5 minutes on a regular basis, for a couple living in two different locations, is sufficient to give them a feeling that they are still closed, even when they are living far away. So
Yeah.
this is what the power of conversation. So moreover, we are humans, and being humans, we by nature are prone to hold a relationship with people just because of we are in utmost need of a person who could take care of us, who could really show affection towards us, who could really show that they are concerned for us. So when we have a certain expectation from a person and the other party is failed to meet with the expectations, now in this condition or situation, the party on the side of loss is at the side of loss will definitely try to seek other possibilities available at her or his disposal.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most you can say possible very prevalent reasons
Yeah.
of all those divorce cases that are happening around the globe. This is not what I says, but this is what the data suggests, that the couples, the marital couples, are whosoever going to the threshold of the court are those who either have lost their connection or who have got some other partners to meet with the expectations. And this is on the both part, not just the wife or the husband. This is applicable to both conflict party, right? So this is what the data suggests. So therefore, conversation is really really important. Even for a minute in a day is something considered to be a good for for maintaining this, for maintaining the essence or balancing the essence of relationship. Before a person could even think that there is nothing left in the relationship, it's better you go and establish a relationship, but continue by continuing your conversation regularly. To listen to someone for 5 minutes is sufficient to continue the relationship. Even when you don't speak, but you are willingly listening to people, your consent partner, then I think you are doing almost your best to protect the relationship. And I think it is rarely seen in those couples or in those affairs or the relationship where these people balance this relationship by holding this short conversation, though they will never have or they never face such kind of breakdowns or downfalls in the relationship of any nature. Over to you.
And you must have heard some people say that if you don't talk, don't make them calls for quite a couple of days, then they say that you seem to have forgotten us.
Yeah.
So when you talk to somebody, whether they're living far away from you or they're living nearby you or they're living with you, if you don't talk to them, you would probably they would probably think that you
Yeah.
have lost that connect which you used to have, right?
Right.
And this makes them feel that if you talk to them, then this makes them feel that you are still with them, you are still connected, you are still in relationship with them, and this is what makes them believe that one day you'll be there and you are there with them. So whenever they
Right.
need you, they can always come to you, they can
Right.
always bank upon you because they need
Right.
you, right? So conversation is really very much important. For example, let's talk about our own family members, right? So we know that they're very closed ones, and they can be your parents, they can be your siblings, they can be anybody. But if you also have if you also don't talk to them for a couple of days, then they also start saying that um, you seem to have forgotten, because the closeness doesn't define that you are going to be with them forever. They also start thinking the same way that now you've gone far away from them if you don't talk
Right.
to them. So conversation is really important if you want to establish some connection with them, and therefore we can also have this example in the similar line. that why do we pray to God? Because this is how we are establishing that connect with the God.
Right.
And if we don't pray to God, it can be you can either do it by meditation, or you can just go and worship, and just you can go to the temple. It is your own way, but somehow you're establishing that connect with the God, because you don't want to forget
Right.
no, you can savior. You don't want to forget the one who created you. So this is all about prayer is
Yeah.
also a form of conversation. This is
Right.
also a form of connect, right? So this is what we wanted to talk about. And what I believe, what we believe is that conversation is really of paramount importance, because without conversation, because we are human beings and we are emotional beings, and if this is not going to be there in a life, conversation is not the part of a life,
Right.
perhaps we cannot imagine that we are actually alive, because
Right.
without conversation we would think that we are alive, but we don't have life. Actually,
Right.
we are just body, but there is
Right.
no life in us. So this
Right.
is what we wanted to talk about, and we will come with another exciting episode in the days to come. And till then, I'm taking a leave. Till then, take care.
Good night. Take care. Bye.